Hello, it's evening. I'm not sure when I need to which, and I'm not sure about how to start this video. And I thought a lot about it, and I'm still not sure about it. I want to talk about the relationship between walking and emotional health. Could walking help with stress, or is it just another self-management habit that brings more stress and relief? To prepare for this video, I read 3 scientific articles. I had never read this kind of articles in their entirety before. Well, maybe once I had. Today we're going to talk about how walking affects us in theory and how it feels in practice. I'll share my experience of walking every day for 14 days. And I also prepared the presentation to support this scientific spirit. It's called the relationship between walking and stress. 3 scientific articles review created by me. I hope you enjoy. The first article I read is called The Daily Step Count and Depression in Adults. In this article, the researchers analyzed other public studies which investigated a type of physical activity and depression symptoms. They found and removed duplicate studies without a measurement of physical activity like pedometer. They also excluded studies that were conducted during COVID lockdown. So they focused on physical activity as daily step count because it was feasible for the general population. And here what they found out. Daily steps were inversely correlated with depressive symptoms, compared with fewer than 5,000 steps daily. Reaching 5,000 or more steps daily were associated with fewer depressive symptoms. In addition, counts above 7,500 steps daily were associated with a 42% lower prevalence of depression. Interestingly, no statistically significant differences were identified within the categories in any of the subgroup analysis. None of the participant characteristics considered like age, sex, or BMI significantly influenced the association between daily steps and depressive symptoms. So, as far as I understand, it means it works for everyone. They also noted that the data could be inaccurate. Often physical activity was self-reported, and it might not be physical activity itself that helps reduce depressive symptoms. It could be other potential mechanisms such as biological and psychological mechanisms, for example, self-esteem, sleep quality, or social support. Anyway, it seems to help, and it's definitely worth trying. The second article I read has a promising title, The Effect of Walking on Depressive and Anxiety Symptoms, Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. In this article, the researchers wanted to get detailed information on other forms of walking that can provide mental health benefits, such as indoor and outdoor walking, individual and group walking, walking facilitated by equipment like pedometers, and non-facilitated walking. Furthermore, it remains unclear whether specific factors like duration, intensity, frequency, and pace actually affect the results of walking interventions. So they searched English language databases for studies published before April 2022. They reviewed the full text of their shortlist articles, and if the full text weren't available on the internet, they asked the authors to send them directly. They excluded articles with mixed interventions, such as combining walking with other physical activities, supplements, or psychological interventions, or single-day walking interventions, and articles with scales measuring overall psychological well-being instead of depressive and anxiety symptoms. So here, the researchers found out that the effects of walking were slightly better with walking in a group, and also outdoor walking was better than indoor walking, but only slightly. Their study didn't find a dose-response effect, neither how often people walked, less than 5 times a week versus 5 or more, nor how long they walked, 10 to 30 minutes versus 35 to 60. Using the pedometer also didn't improve the results. The main conclusion is that walking reduces depressive symptoms, whether indoor or outdoor, in a group or alone, for long or short durations. And of course, it could be lots of bias and random variation. The last article I read to push myself to start walking is called Effects of Light on Human Circadian Rhythms, Sleep and Mood. It's a review article, which means they didn't conduct new experiments with animals or humans. The authors collected data from earlier studies and systematized it. The most interesting things I've learned from this article are: the first one, circadian rhythms are real. They influence melatonin and the sleep cycle. Honestly, I used to think it was just a mysterious concept. Second, both melatonin suppression and circadian phase shifts are modulated by photic history, that is, the amount of light seen during the day. The effect of evening light from screens is much less if you spend time outside during the day. Third is historical fact. In 1984, bright light therapy, or BLT, was introduced for mood disorders, particularly seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. SAD is a subtype of depression characterized by strong seasonal variations in mood states. BLT is nowadays established as first-line treatment for SAD, leading to an improvement of symptoms after a few days of treatment. Light therapy is also effective as second-line treatment for non-seasonal depression, although it usually takes longer, 2 to 5 weeks, than in SAD to achieve a therapeutic effect. BLT can be provided by special, commercially available therapy lamps, which operate at luminance levels between 7 to 10,000, but natural daylight during a regular 1-hour morning walk has been shown to be similarly effective. The last one is BLT is particularly effective when exposure to light occurs regularly on a daily basis for at least 30-60 minutes. The antidepressant effect of light is most pronounced when it's got in early morning hours. So what do we know? According to these articles, the most effective way to improve our mood and overall health is regular daytime outdoor walking with 5 to 7,500 steps a day to get enough daily light, and physical activity, and sleep better. And it's the end of the presentation, and just we'll continue in walking experiment part. Okay, I've changed my position, and I want to continue the story. Well, at that moment I was inspired enough to start my walking experiment, so I did. To be fair, I'd already walked for approximately 14 days by the start of my experiment, and at that time I noticed I was really peaceful. I felt very calm, and I went outside during the day several times, and several times a week I was outside for a long time. It just happened naturally. Every day I had some things to do outside, and the weather was really good, so it was really worked for me. Then I officially started my experiment, and it started to be different and much more challenging. We talked about the most effective way of walking. It's regular daytime outdoor walking with 5 to 7,500 steps during daylight, and I didn't set the goal this way. My goal was easier, just to be outside at least 15 minutes daily for 2 weeks, and no matter whether it's light or dark. The official experiment was more difficult this time because I didn't have another reason to go for a walk most of the times. I even skipped 2 days of the experiment, and I didn't feel as calm and peaceful during these days as previous days, but I had some external events that got me stressed. So I'm sure this time would be much more stressful if I didn't go outside. To sum up my little experiment, I was outside 12 times out of 14. My average daily step count reached 10,600 steps, with the highest numbers on weekends. And for the second week, they were about 4,300 steps. My step count dropped by half. I guess it's because I was sick that week. Most of the times I went for a long walk in the evening hours, but I noticed if I went outside during the day, I felt much better. I also noticed that walking late in the evening hours before sleep helped me a lot. It worked like meditation and it really helped clear my mind. So in the future, I'd like to repeat the experiment with all this knowledge about light and include morning walking as a rule. But for now, it is what it is. That's how my last few months have been. To answer the first question, could walking help with stress, or is it just another self-management habit that brings more stress and relief? I would say it definitely could help. Even when it was self-management habit, it still worked. So I highly recommend it. For myself at least. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Let's support each other and make life a little less stressful. See you soon. I'll share share my experience about the relationship between walking and emotional health, not stress. The official experiment similarly effective. Bright light therapy was introduced